welcome to our World Hour of Power here with Lady Pauline and my honorable co-host, Mr. Glenn Greenwich, the Honorable Mayor of Southern Boulevard. Today we have a special young lady with us. She is the Assemblyman of the 29th District, Miss Alicia L. Hyndman.
Thank you.
Welcome to our
Welcome,
world.
welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Yeah, so what's going on in your life now? I hear some great stuff that you're going to be running for borough president.
Right. So I currently represent the 29th Assembly District, which are the communities of Rosedale, Laurelton, Springfield Gardens, Addisleigh Park, St. Albans, Hollis, and Jamaica.
Okay.
I've been in the Assembly for 4 years. And I've seen a lot. I think it's been a crunch time, but I've seen a lot of what Queens has not been receiving. And I really think that this seat that's opened up as a borough president to really work towards the transportation inequities we have in this community and communities around the borough. Looking at the education for our public school kids, as I'm a public school grad myself, and I have 2 daughters. One graduated, the other one's in public school now. Okay. When we talk about immigration, as an immigrant, making sure that communities feel welcome, that this borough, with so many cultures and languages in the most diverse place on the planet, we have to make sure that immigrants who are here feel protected and have pathways to citizenship. And also talking about housing and the lack of inventory of affordable housing that we have here. Like, I live in a co-op. I can't afford to buy a house. I know there are a lot more people who are like me. Yes. And making sure that people don't have to choose between, making sure people have good quality housing choices to choose from. And also making sure that our small businesses are doing well in this borough, because we have a lot of different communities that offer, wherever you go, you can go on Suffolk Boulevard, Queens Boulevard, 243rd Street in Rosedale, Jackson Heights. There's hundreds and thousands of small businesses, and we just want to make sure that they're thriving. And as a borough president, those are the goals and issues that I would like to work on.
As a matter of fact, today, me and Glenn, we was at a shelter on what is it, Van Wyck Expressway?
Van Wyck Expressway, right.
Family shelter. And some of the people that I saw this year, I saw last year. Mm-hmm. So that meant that they didn't get any housing. Mm-hmm. So they're still in the shelter system.
Right.
And that's one of my greatest concerns for the constituencies, to listen to what's going on, how they can find affordable housing. Is there really affordable housing?
Yes, there is affordable housing.
Okay.
However, there's not enough affordable housing. I think that's the point we have to make. And the inventory is not being built fast enough for the amount of people who are homeless. And as we know, there are over 100,000 children who are displaced and who are homeless. And I think it's incumbent upon us, especially as elected officials, to make sure we're pushing the envelope, because people are going to work and still homeless.
Yes, that's very true.
And that is disturbing.
Very disturbing.
It's very disturbing that you get up and you go to work every day and you're taking your kids to school, but you don't have a home to come back to.
Right.
So this week, I had a workshop on affordable housing, and a lot of the people that were in the room, some young people who said, I finished college and I had to move back home because I can't afford the apartments that are on the market.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had experts there from HUD, from HPD, Housing and Urban Development, Housing Preservation Development, Homes and Community Renewal, different city and state agencies, because we want people to hear from them what they need to do to get on these lists.
Yes.
There's the Housing Connect website that people put their information in, but didn't know every time they have to check and apply to apartments. You have to
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people didn't know that.
Right.
So some people you fill out the application.
Mm-hmm. So you can fill out the application 2 ways. You can mail it in, or you can do it online. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you mail it in, then you have to call physically to make sure that your application, if something else comes on, because a lot like AM New York usually lists all of the apartments that come through Housing Connect. But there are others that come up to all around, not just Queens, but in other boroughs, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. So people don't know you have to apply. it's not automatic that once you're in that you don't
get
have,
notified.
Yes. So you have to, another one comes up, you apply. Your stuff is in the system, but if you don't apply to them, that's another thing. And then people also have to think, because New York City, the way it is, sometimes it may not be in the immediate neighborhood.
Right.
It'll be
That's
really nice if people could stay where they want to be, right? But because of the schematics of this, sometimes it may be Brooklyn, it may be the Bronx,
or
it may be
right.
Manhattan.
Yeah, Staten Island too.
Yeah, that's a reach, right? So at least you know the 4 boroughs you can get around faster.
Right.
So you have to also think like, and some people do come to me because they want to stay right where they are, right? And I get it. I understand. I love this borough. You want to stay here. But sometimes it may be temporary. Maybe you can come back at a later point. And another thing is what they also told us at the workshop was that they're also making it so that as apartments, not just new apartments, but as apartments become eligible, that they will now be listing those online also. So people
but
are
you still have to apply.
You still have to apply. You still have to apply, and there were a couple of people in the room who are in labor unions, and I said, you pay your labor dues. You need to talk to your leadership about, I was in a union too. You have to be able to feel comfortable enough to go to your leadership and say, I really need you to push the next candidate for mayor to say, like, I really want us to make sure that some of these housing applications give preferences to, union employees and so forth. Do you remember that back in the days they had the Cop Next Door or Teacher Next Door program?
Yes, I remember
those.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to make sure that for the city of New York that moves because of a lot of labor, we need to make sure that they have priority preferences too. And those are the things, like as a borough president, we'll be able to push other borough presidents, to push our mayor to say these are the kinds of things we have to make sure that we're housing those people that moved the city of New York. So, and it was really, it was informative for me too. Like people think I know everything, but I don't.
No.
I really don't. So, but part of my job, I think, is of service to the communities, making sure people know what's out there and what's available. And also when it comes to, we found out if you have a family member who, there's like intergenerational housing. If someone in the household is over 62 years old, that as long as one person in the household is over 62, they can apply for the intergenerational housing for family.
Well, you're speaking to a person that's over 62.
No.
Yes. So please break it down to me.
So as long as one person in the household is over 62 years old, they have specific housing that's intergenerational. So that way you could apply. There's also applications for that. So what I told the audience was that our office is here as a resource. If you didn't get the information, we'll make sure we get you the information. We'll make sure we get you the contacts. And if you don't have access to a computer, come to our office. We'll make sure that you get onto the housing application. And if it means you come by every week and do it with us, that's great. Because we want to make sure you have to be proactive also.
About it,
and I'm not saying this for families who are homeless. I think for families who are homeless, that the city of New York should be really doing what they're doing every day, making sure that these individuals are looking for housing and that housing is available. I'm sure you heard about the news the other day about families in New Jersey.
Yes, about them.
Being housed in Jersey. And
is that really necessary?
There's a housing shortage. So there is. So I think I'm not sure how that materialized. So
I think that they probably were trying to think outside of the box, but that's a long way.
It's like saying Staten Island.
Yeah. It's worse than saying Staten Island.
It's a long way.
Well, listen, I got a question for you. Would you explain the difference between what the Assembly does and what the New York State senators do?
Okay, so
I know they work together.
So I am an Assembly member, and my constituents, roughly, the number is about 150 constituents, right? A state senatorial district has like maybe 300,000 to 500,000 constituents, depending on the geographic makeup.
Okay.
So there are 150 state assembly members and 63 senators. Okay. And you have our governor. So you have it's a bicameral legislature and a governor. So it's like checks and balances.
Okay.
So I have a bill I had a bill recently for an asthma study because, we have the planes, we have
All
the
that
trains,
stuff
we have the automobiles in
polluting us.
Southeast
Yes,
Queens,
yeah.
we have the Belt Parkway, the Van Wyck Expressway, the airplanes, the railroad that's outdoors. I wanted to do a study on that. I needed to find a Senate sponsor on the other side to sponsor my bill. I believe my sponsor, I think it was it was Senator James Sanders.
Okay.
So he was the Senate sponsor. I'm the Assembly sponsor. We pushed the bill into both houses. It passed. It then goes to the governor's desk for signage. He vetoed it. But that's how the legislation works. So we kind of have.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. I live in Senator Leroy Comrie's senatorial district, but he has like 5 other assembly members in his district.
In this district, right.
So it's myself. It's Assemblyman Clyde Vannell, Assemblywoman Vivian Cook, Assemblymember David Weprin. I think he may have Assemblymember Nilly Rosick. So the senatorial districts are larger, and they encompass us.
Okay.
So his and there are only 63 of them. So they have a bigger base, a bigger, when they say things, they have a bigger platform than the assembly members do, but they can't pass legislation without us.
Right.
And we can't pass legislation without them. And
So it sounds like that it's kind of like the House of Representatives and the Senate,
Congress, yeah.
except
Exactly.
for on a state level.
Yes, that's a good way to look at it. Yes.
Okay.
Like the House of Representatives is based on population, right?
Right. Yes.
And the House, the Senate is 2 senators per state.
Yeah. Right.
So
okay.
100. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's how
Okay.
that's how it works.
But I think for our constituents, so both of you have to work together to pass any bill. So the
Yes.
Senate and the Assembly have to work together
in
order to pass any state legislation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the difference, so I'll just throw this in there. You didn't ask, but City Council only passes legislation for the 5 boroughs.
Right.
I, as the Assembly member, can pass legislation for the entire state of New York,
yes.
which supersedes any city law.
Right.
I'll give you an example. The city passed the plastic ban bill for the city of New York. The governor changed it and not vetoed it. He passed another bill or put it in the budget to get rid of that. So whatever happens in Albany affects the entire state of New York, including the 62 counties in the state of New York. What we pass affects all 62 counties. What happens in the city council affects the city council. So when it comes to like hierarchy or senior protocols, it's Congress, it's state Senate, it's state assembly, and then it's city council.
Okay. So that's kind of the pecking order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
I would like to know something. Did you always want to be in politics?
No, and this is what's really interesting about my life, and I tell a lot of women, especially, sorry, Glenn,
That's okay.
but I talk to a lot of women about this, and I say that, and maybe this, not just a lot of women, just individuals, especially kids. Like, I never planned to run for office. There are some of my colleagues who worked for legislature, was an intern, poli-sci major, went to law school. No, I went to SUNY New Paltz. I was a communications media major.
New Paltz? Okay.
Yeah, I went to New Paltz. Yeah, and I was gonna go into TV and radio or journalism. I like to write. I love the news. Always have. Always been abreast of world politics, city and state politics. Always. So I thought that's where I was going. I got to school and it changed. And then I went to grad school because it was a free program. I could get my public administration degree in 2 years. I had to work, and that was Massachusetts. And I said, sure, I'll do this. And then when I came back to New York, I lucked into higher education because I've always believed that education is an opportunity, not just for black people, but for every race, everyone that comes here.
Upward mobility, absolutely.
Upward mobility. My father said education was never about just making more money. It's about being able to critically analyze and understand what's going on in the world and being able to really, be a productive citizen, and being able to be in control of your own thoughts and actions and how you raise families. So I never planned to run for politics. I bought my home. I bought a co-op in Laurelton Gardens in 2005. I was working for the state education department. I worked with all of the career and technical vocational schools throughout the state of New York. Anything non-degree granting. For example, automotive, cosmetology, nail technicians, pet groomers, bartenders, nurse aides, patient care assistants, ultrasound techs.
Natural hair care?
All of that's under cosmetology, that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything that's non-degree granting came under the supervision of my office, for the entire state of New York. And I volunteered on my daughter's PTA and was part of the Community Education Council, former school boards, the new version of the school boards. I did that for like 9-10 years, and the seat opened up. And I decided
to go for it, huh?
Yeah. So that was 4 years ago. And everything that's why I tell people, everything you learn is preparing you for something else. Some people are really focused and directed, I'm going to do this. That wasn't me. I was just always in a position where stop talking about things and always put yourself in a position where you can do something to change it. And that's why I got involved in the Community Education Council. And then 4 years ago I ran for office and I won.
Wonderful.
So, yeah,
now,
my story's different.
Yes. Now, how do you balance, I'm going to ask you, how do you balance being a mother, career woman, politician?
I'm still learning that. So I'm a single mom. My oldest, I said, is in college, and my youngest is she's in the 4th grade. And she said to me, like, yo, you like to go to more meetings than you do, when she gets in her moods. And I get it. And I felt, so sometimes I feel bad because I'm saying to myself, I could be home with her, or I'm going to a meeting because I know there's a need right there. And I think every person who is involved in community service or politics or you want to be able to be a good mother or father, and then there's also the job. And if I want to do a good job, I know I have to be out there. But I think what I try to tell my daughter it's the quality time.
Yes.
So I try to pick her up from school most days. She isn't an after-school program, but like during the week, I'll try to pick her up early. I take her to school every morning.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Right. And I have a good support system. Her father's side of the family, the aunts and the grandmother, they help me out tremendously. Because in Albany, going to Albany, I have to
it's a lot of travel.
Yes.
So I'm working on that. I'm working on trying to find and I don't know if anyone tells you they got it down. I need to talk to them because I'm still working on making sure there's enough time for family, work, and me. Right? Yes. There's also that.
You need some me time.
Me time.
Yeah.
Which is few and far in between. So when I go to the salon and get my hair did and speak to that's my me time, you know. But it's still trying to find a balance and still, making sure that I'm grateful for what I have. Being grateful, I think, is really important.
Now, what advice would you give to the young women that's in college that wants to be like you?
That's really humbling. I would say that always be true to yourself. I think as young women, and this is even as an adult, when I was thinking about running, you start thinking like, I don't know, these guys, and I said this, these men are probably more qualified, or I don't know if this mother of two has what it takes to. I second guess myself a lot, and sometimes those little voices are still there. But I would tell them, and I think these young people sometimes they're more bolder, I think, than I was. Is that this, especially, and I'll give you this example, and I don't want to go too much into the politics part, but when it comes to black women. And and I'm a black woman, my mother's black, my grandmother was black, my great-grandmother, I'm a black woman, and I got that from Rihanna. I have to give her credit for that. But we hold up the Democratic Party.
Yes.
We are the ones that go vote for Democrats. We are the ones that take care of everyone, take care of not just the families, but the households and the communities. But when it comes to positions of power, we're not there. And we still have a lot of work to do. So for the young women, I would say, the paths were blazed for me, and now I'm blazing the path for you. So you don't have to work as hard, but you do have to make sure that you go to school. You do have to make sure that you build relationships. You do have to make sure that you take care of your character, especially in a social media environment. You have to make sure you protect yourself and create opportunities, not just for yourself, but for others. Because I'm only as good as the people that I bring with me and the community I carry. And I think that's very important for young women to realize that, so especially now in this world, you have to make sure that everything you do is of character. Because things will come back to
haunt you.
They
yes,
come back
they
to
do.
haunt you, and you have to be and it comes back really quick.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Social media.
Well, social media
right
is
now.
very quick.
So for those young women, I would say go to college. And if you don't go to college, learn a career or a trade. Some of the cosmetologists, people are making their own lipstick brands, their own entrepreneurial, that spirit is there. Build your relationships. If it's politics that you're interested in, intern, volunteer. If it's cosmetology you're interested in, you can go. Some of these high schools have programs where you can be a cosmetologist when you graduate, like William H. Maxwell in Brooklyn. They still have the cosmetology program. You can still, most of the cosmetologists, if you think about it, own their own shops.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they're entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
If it's a lot of these young women that marketed themselves with the social media about their skills they have, whether it would be nails or making clothes or jewelry. So I would tell whatever it is you find that if this is your passion, then follow it. I didn't know I was going to run for politics. So I think a lot of times people say like, oh, you just know. Sometimes you don't know. Mm-hmm. But still keep working, keep building, keep expanding your horizons and finding what your passion is. Like I'm so blessed that I get up every day. I love my job. I love to go to work.
That's beautiful.
I didn't say that when I was working for State Ed. I had a job.
Right.
It was okay. Mm-hmm. I didn't hate it. But this is something now in my 40s that I can say I'm blessed.
Passion,
and
the passion.
I found it later on. I think, and for those young people who find it early, great. But if you don't, it's okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get frustrated by that.
They do.
It's okay.
They expect it to happen
right
all
away.
at once, right?
Yeah. And
let me ask you this. Given the vocation, because you were in charge of the vocational aspect of schooling, mm-hmm. of high school, I guess, right?
This is post high school.
Okay. Do we have enough programs?
So when you talk about post high school, yes. If we're talking about in high school, no, because a lot of that was cut out of the shops and all that kind of stuff. Because I remember when I went to high school, you had electric shop, you had a wood shop, you had metal shop. I mean, you had all these different,
aviation.
You had all these opportunities. Mm-hmm. So it's not. I know it's not available.
Schools, okay, some schools.
Edison, for example, is one of the schools.
Thomas Edison definitely has a lot of the young men and women who graduate from there can go right into different unions from Thomas Edison, whether it be Painters Union. I'm trying to think what the other unions are that work with Thomas Edison, but a lot of those students have pathways right into it.
I think electrician, auto body.
I don't know if they have auto body.
They're doing some auto body. Right. Stuff in there. I don't know if that will put them right into the union. But
what's so important about what you said is that aviation is at August Martin High School, and it has grown. Right. It's still there, right? Yeah. I remember that I never took typing.
Typing and bookkeeping.
I never took typing. My brother took typing. His first job out of college was at they call it alphanumeric coding or whatever.
Yes.
He got many jobs over years from what he learned in high school. So now typing may not be because everyone has a computer and access right now. So, but you're right. A lot of woodworking. We talk about people going into carpenters. You don't always have to be in the carpenters union, but there are a lot of carpenters that do home improvement.
Sure.
And do development that's non-union. So the DOE for the last, I would say, 8 years realized that they took a lot of those programs out. and now they're reinstituting them back into the high school.
Oh, they are. Okay.
But the difference is it's not so much of the wood shop or the machinist kind of things. It's more of the STEM, where it's like IT or what's called A+, or fixing computers, creating software programs. That is the other avenue now when it comes to career and technical education. So
that makes sense.
But I always say, I'll give you an example for automotive. A young person can be in high school and learn automotive and then go on to create the cars because they may go to college later, right? Sometimes the things that are created out of necessity because someone realizes there's a product or an idea that they have. They just need to have the tools they need in order to make that happen. So to me, education is not just, it's for me from the cradle to career, and however long that takes. But having the avenues in which to do so is what I think that I've always used my education background to open up the horizon for young people. And for adults. I have a lot of adults who go back to school. It's never too late. No. My father got his GED when I was in high school.
Really?
And my mother's an RN, and my father was a carpenter. And I always say it's when you stop learning, to me, is when it's time for you to go.
Yeah. Well, I got lucky in high school. We had a computer. We had a computer terminal at Jamaica High School in the 70s. And so I learned programming. I learned Fortran, COBOL, was a couple other RPG. So when I went to college, because I ended up going to college for IT, for computers. So I already knew the languages. I knew the syntax. I was coding already and doing all of that stuff. And so it really made it a breeze for me in college, because I've gotten that experience in right here in Jamaica High School.
See, and I think that's one of the things we have to be able to still continue to be able to say that.
Yeah.
That the exposure I got in high school is what led me to this career or led me to this college, and I think there are stories like that. We don't always hear them, but that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
I like to say you're listening to Our World, Our Power here on Caribbean Buzz Radio and TV. And don't forget, you can hear us on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Google Play, and please do not forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
And Roku.
Oh, yes, Roku. Yes, we're on Roku now. Another platform.
I don't understand all the platforms. I turn my TV on and on.
So please, continue to watch us and subscribe to Our World, Our Power. Let's continue the conversation. I'd like to know who was some of your people that inspired you as growing up.
My mom. She's like my best friend now. Growing up, she's not. She wasn't. She's Jamaican. My mom's Jamaican. My dad's Guyanese. They were very strict.
Okay.
And as I've gotten older, I realize a lot of things I say and do is because of the things my mom instilled in me, and I realized it when I became a parent.
I know.
That sometimes I hear myself talking. I'm like, it's my mother's voice.
Yes.
But I want to say my mom was really instrumental in who I am today, and she is my best friend today. And it took a long time for us to get, just mother-daughters, and, I went away to college when I was 18, and I haven't lived home since I was 18 years old. So, and the independence that I have came from my parents. They never had gender roles in my house. My father cooked. My mother sometimes put up some sheetrock because dad was taking too long. So she would put up ceiling fans, and I'm telling you that my mother was.
That's awesome.
So like in my home, I have my drill and my level and my, the knobs come up from the doors. I put them back, and I can put oil in the car because my parents never had those gender roles. They made my brother and I do everything.
Yeah.
He's a better cook than I am. So my mom was a big influence. But if I want to say I watched a lot of news growing up, and I grew up in England till I was about 10. And I remember Margaret Thatcher, never seen any women in those positions, never seen any women as world leaders. Because I did watch a lot of news, a lot of BBC with my dad. And she was the only woman there.
Right.
And in the press, was, you know, she was the Iron Lady. Was an eye opening as a little kid. And coming to this country, you know, it was a lot more black women I got to see in those positions of being of powerful. I remember Carol Moseley Braun being in the Senate, and I think it's a shame that to this day she's, you know, we've only had 2 black women to be in the U.S. Senate. Yes. The second one now is Kamala Harris, who had just bowed out of the presidential race. Yes. And I think it just goes to show you that we need more black women role models for black women, because I think as we move forward in power and politics, we need to make sure that we're blazing the trails for all of those women that come behind us. I think that's important. But I think my mom and Margaret Thatcher are the ones that I credit with.
I'm going to put you on the spot on this one. When are we going to be ready for a female president?
I think America's ready.
You think so?
And I'll tell you why. I think when Kamala bowed out of the race, I know for me, I'm distracted now because I'm running for borough president. But I was like, it's too early. When I look at what she's saying and her platform, I think spoke to a lot of us about how it is to be a person of color in this country and go to college and grow and then run for office and then win and then run for another office. But it's hard to raise money.
It is.
I know I'm going through it now. It's harder to raise money because most of your circle is women that look like you, who you know are taking care of homes and families. And you're like, can I get $10 for this campaign and so forth? And it's a hard ask because as an independent woman, I'm used to just doing it myself. And now I have to ask someone for help. I think that's part of, culturally, that's just part of what we are. But I think that America is ready for a black woman. And I think it's incumbent upon the Democratic Party to start promoting black women, because we hold up this nation.
And the party.
And it's not just that. I think when you uplift black women and black women, everybody
else gets lifted up.
Every race, every ethnicity, every religion gets lifted up too when you lift up black women. And that is, and everyone that you have these analysis with or grow with will tell you the same thing. So I think America is ready, and I think it's incumbent upon the Democratic Party to do better, to elevate women to positions of power. And to not always, in a lot of rooms you go into, Glenn, and I'm sure you can say this, there's a lot of men in the room sometimes.
Yes.
And our voices sometimes get drowned out, or we second guess ourselves. And I think that's another reason why, I'm running for borough president, because I think it's time. No one's going to say, here you go.
No.
You have to, like Shirley Chisholm said, unboard and unboss, pull up a seat at the table. If there's not a seat there for you, bring your folding chair and sit down. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of times what we have to do. So I think we're ready. I think we weren't ready for Trump, but we got him.
Well,
and
that's
look what's
true.
happening. So I think when we're talking about repairing this country, I think it's a woman should be in that role to do that. And I wish it was Kamala Harris.
Well, we certainly need the nurturing after 45.
Yes,
because it's been a break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely has.
What are some of the changes that you would like to implement along the line as borough president?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that all of our high schools are comprehensively giving our children what we need to be successful, which is which I say cradle to career, making sure that in high schools the options are, if you're not going to college, then these are the options, viable options for you for career paths. Because and then not just doing it when they come to the senior year, doing it earlier on. A borough president has influence in our public schools, working with the DOE to make these things happen. I would have an education chair in the borough president's office that's in constant communication with district superintendents, seeing how we can build relationships, if it's with private industry, if it's culturally, if it's music, arts, how we can build those industries to make sure our high schools have all the access within the borough and not always have to go outside. I think, and the borough president has the ability to do that. When it comes to transportation, working with your legislators on the state and city levels to make sure Queens has the transportation. This weather has been bad this last couple of weeks. This last week. Can you imagine if you had to go to Suffolk Boulevard or the bus terminal and wait for the bus in this weather, and then wait for the bus and the bus is late? We have to make sure we have a better bus system for Queens, not just in Southeast Queens, all over Queens. So we can, and one of the things, I'll give you an example, is when we talk about congestion pricing in the State Assembly, I said to my speaker, so I can't sit here and talk to you about congestion pricing unless we get money for buses and transportation in Queens. We need to make sure that our buses and trains move regularly, are state of the art, and that's one of the things we pushed for. We pushed for a lockbox to make sure that the MTA couldn't take that money and use it for something else. We pushed for the Atlantic ticket to make sure we reduce the fares of every train that goes for. If you have a Long Island Railroad station in your immediate area, you should be able to get on that train for a discounted rate. We did that for Brooklyn. Now the next thing we're pushing is to go into Penn Station.
Right.
So not only was it in Southeast Queens, I advocated with my colleagues in Northeast Queens so they would get a discount on their monthly ticket to commute into New York City. We got them a 20% discount on their monthly tickets into New York City. Okay. Those kinds of things I was able to do in the Assembly is what I want to make sure we do in the Borough President's Office. The last thing I want to talk about is housing. We have to have more inventory of affordable housing in this borough. There's a lot of development that's going up. Some of it will be market rate. Yes. I get that. Yeah. But any city property has to be able to offer different income bands and ask every developer to do that. We can have community boards work with good neighbor policy with developers to make sure that the apartments you're building have different income bands. So when my daughter comes home, she can get an apartment, right? Okay. And not have to live with me.
Why? Now, I was going to say, I live in Addisleigh Gardens, which is a Section 8 building. Why aren't there more of these type of programs? I mean, we have NYTRA, which is disastrous. But where I'm living is beautiful. And things get done like that. If it doesn't get done, I make it happen. Anyway, but we still need more of that type of housing.
I agree with you. I agree 100%. We have individuals that come in with Section 8 vouchers and can't find housing. Right. So what we find out at the housing workshop I was talking about is that if you have a Section 8 voucher, you can apply on Housing Connect for housing. That's just a subsidy you have to list, and you can apply. Now the difference is it won't come through as fast, but we can help you get your Section 8 vouchers renewed through the city, so that way that you're still eligible for the lotteries that take place with Housing Connect. Now, in the situation that you're talking about, there are programs that have been discontinued. Mitchellama, there's no more Mitchellama.
Yes.
Rochdale is thriving. Rochdale, thank you to the board. The board of Rochdale has done an excellent job. Rochdale is thriving. You know what the wait list is for Rochdale?
No.
Like couple of years.
4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Because people aren't leaving.
No.
There are many, if you think about, I want to say the new chief of detectives, Harrison, his mother lives in Rochdale. There's a lot of police and corrections officers who live in Rochdale. Yes. There's a lot of union people that live in South Rochdale. Yeah. But we have to make sure that we're looking at programs, and this is why we have to really take a good look at who's running for mayor. What are they going? What platforms are they going to really use towards making sure that we have people who have adequate housing, just like the one you mentioned, Addisleigh Gardens. And the next mayor has a lot to do with that. This mayor promised a lot. He's tried to deliver. I think he's done probably more on education than he's done in the affordable housing area. But this is an area that our next mayor really has to work on. And it also, honestly, our next congressional members really, that's why the votes are important. Every election is important. This presidential election has really hurt New York City and New York State. We need to make sure that the next president really works with the members of Congress to reduce we get lumped into Westchester County, Putnam County, Rockland County when it comes to area medium income, AMIs, right?
AMIs, right, yeah.
Westchester should not be in that equation.
Westchester should not
Putnam
be. And actually, quite frankly, I don't think Manhattan... I think
it should be borough-based or
yeah,
it should be
community-based.
borough-based or community-based.
Because
Absolutely.
Manhattan, some of the
You're priced
salaries-
out.
Yeah,
You're priced out. It's
you
crazy.
can't compare. And I think, the Speaker of the Assembly, Carl Hastie, has gone to D.C. a couple of times to speak to the New York delegation, but it's really hard when the Senate doesn't work with you. But we
Right.
need to change that. New Yorkers, people are leaving New York, but people are still coming into New York.
A lot of people are coming
So,
in. Yeah, because we still have the services.
We're still here.
We're providing a lot of services.
Yes,
yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
Something that I'm laughing to myself is because I'm on Southern Boulevard a lot, and especially near to Hillside Avenue, right? And it talks about we have affordable housing, and when you look at the affordable housing, and they make it sound like it's something very luxurious. And you're talking about old-time tenements that now is called, it's in a different class of a type of housing. And when you go to Virginia or Atlanta, Georgia, and you see all the type of housing that they have and what you get for your money, I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah. So I remember when I was in, I had just finished grad school, and my girlfriend moved down to Maryland, and we went down to Maryland, and we were like, wow, you got to wash and dry.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You got another bathroom?
Exactly.
We need to move down here. We can't get this in New York.
No,
Yeah.
right.
What? It's in New York is, but everyone wants to come here, right? And the housing it's different because affordable, and sometimes we were talking about this the other night, like some of the affordable apartments, they're small.
Yeah, they're
right?
like little
Yes.
boxes.
Teeny tiny.
They're small. I mean, like, this is New York City, but I hope my hope is that you start off small, but then you can increase your income and then move to someplace that's bigger. And if you think about a lot of the apartment buildings that, like you said, were tenements, when the Irish came, they were able to come and
They had places.
save, and they could move out.
Right.
When the Italians came,
Same thing.
same thing. When the Asians, I'm going to get back to us. When the Asians came, a lot of them have used it and then moved out. But for us, we had to deal with racism and discrimination from redlining.
Yes.
And
Institutional
racism.
Yeah.
Institutional redlining. Institutional banks would prevent us from getting loans. So we could never move out to the Levitt towns or those other communities that weren't being built for us because they kept us out. And that, I think, in this country really, and still continues to have the problem of racism. This is racism. It still exists.
It does.
And let's be clear about that if you have people that are building software, no one in the room looks like you, those implicit biases go out into things that are made or produced and marketed to us. So it has a lot to do with making sure home ownership is still a viable option, and that Neighborhood Housing Services of Jamaica is a gem. And will take you through programs in order to be a first-time home buyer. And sometimes I think it may be easier to be a home buyer than a renter because of the information that they ask a lot of renters. If you're looking for an apartment now, they want to know, everything about you and so forth. So a lot of young
about
people,
your mama and your papa and your grandparents and
you
all
need a
that.
cosigner.
Yes.
So I will say that I think that home ownership is still the best way, I think, to asset building, or in this country, I think it's still a first step. And then that we have to teach our children about wealth building is important.
Absolutely.
And I think and the elected officials, I have to say, we're doing a much better job of working together to get things done. And as borough president, I would do that too, because you have your capital budget, you have a discretionary budget, but it works better if you're working with each corner of the borough, making sure that you're piling or pooling your money to make sure you're making the differences you want to see. Affordable housing for seniors is a major issue.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that as our community ages, we have to make sure. A lot of people want to downsize. A lot of seniors want to sell their houses in Rosedale and Laurelton, but there's nowhere for them to go because they want to be in the senior building. So we have to really increase our inventory in those areas. And we have a lot of churches that own
A lot of
property.
cities, yes, they do.
And some of the churches are turning their property
And
into
building,
affordable housing.
and building,
So
yeah.
we need to encourage a lot of our ministers and church boards to really think about turning their property into affordable housing. And that's something I really want to work in as borough president.
Well, it sounds good. and I'm so glad that you was able to make it to our
Me
show.
too. I am glad.
We've been talking to Assemblywoman Alicia Hyndman. I love your name.
I think my last name is like Scottish or Jewish, and my first name is Spanish.
Alicia L. Hyndman. I heard somewhere that you spent some time in England. You
I
said
was
you
born in England.
You was born in England.
I came here when I was about 10. We moved to Hollis, Queens.
Hollis, all
At the
right.
height of, like, you know, well, I love old school hip hop. I really love old school hip hop because when I came here, it was a culture shock.
Sure.
You
Sure.
know?
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Coming
in
from
the
London.
80s.
Right,
Yeah, that's
My
so
first
different.
my first school is PS 34, which is right on the corner of like Hollis Avenue and Springfield Boulevard, and everyone wanted me to talk because they loved the
The
accent.
accent, yes, sir.
But I try to get rid of that as fast as possible.
I love it. I love
I
it.
didn't want to stay down.
That's funny. I did the same thing when I spent, I was born here, but I spent 4 of my first 5 years in Guyana.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I came back and I had this heavy
Trees
accent.
and trees.
Yes. Notro oni roland. and my buddies till today still teases me about that.
I was a good friend.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful having you on for this past hour, and I would like to have you back.
Anytime.
Again, to talk about whatever is going on in the future. Whatever. Hopefully, everything works out.
You know, I would love to come back. No matter, you know, if everything works out, great. But I think that the two of you in podcasts and shows and programming like this is that people think it doesn't exist, and it does because you're doing it. And I think that we have to realize a lot of times we have to create our own stories.
Yes, we
cannot wait for people to define us.
Absolutely.
And that's what the two of you are doing.
Well,
So thank you.
I thank you for your support of being here, because this is what me and Glenn, are going to continuously do, is bring these type of programs to the forefront.
Yeah, and
people
educate folks what's going on. How do they get involved? What are the avenues that are available?
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people don't know, and our point is to have people know
Exactly.
more about what's
Right.
going on,
The
and
information
having
is there.
the information that you shared with us today is part of that conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for
My
being
pleasure
here.
to be here.
We had a great time, and looking forward to our next
Conversation.
interview.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Our World, Our Power, here with Lady Pauline and the Honorable Mayor of Sutton Boulevard, Mr. Glenn Greenwich. Do you have anything that you want to say about the community? Anything coming up regarding the
Well,
Sutton
I just want to actually thank the sponsors and Sutton Boulevard Bid and the volunteers for all the work that we've been doing lately. We've been out to the Grace Church Soup Kitchen for Thanksgiving. We're going to be back there for the Christmas on the 17th for their Christmas dinner that they're going to do with Grace Church Soup Kitchen. We also had the opportunity, one of the landlords on Sutton Boulevard donated 18 turkeys, so we cooked up turkeys and gave out 200 meals on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, yeah,
from
we
7
did,
to 12, and then
I forgot to say, I have a teen event next week, Friday, at Club Juve for making sure that we don't leave out our teens when it comes to this holiday conversation, making sure that they're engaged. We're doing giveaways. They just have to make sure they have parent permission to come to Club Juve next Friday at 5 p.m. They can call my office at 718-723-5412 for more information.
give them that number again, please.
718-723-5412. It'll be an excellent time for them they're in charge. We've had teens in the office for the last month or so telling us what they want to see. A lot of times we think we know what they want or tell them, but they're organizing the whole event because we have to make sure that we don't lose sight that they're part of this constituency.
Yes.
So what day is the event?
Next week, Friday the 20th, from 5. It starts at 5 o'clock at Club Juve, and they have to sign up with our office.
Club Juve is
which
located
is
where?
on the corner of Sutton Boulevard and Liberty Avenue.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Right
That
there.
sounds great. My audience, catch you all next week, same time, same place. Caribbean Buzz. Take care.
Peace out.